Hello there, and welcome to episode 3 of Cup of Tea with Mr. P. So, this is an episode that I meant to make, literally a year ago. So, why a year ago? Well, a little backstory on that. As some of you who may poke around my channel might know, I'm a middle school teacher. I love what I do, and sometimes I get lucky and I have some cool students. But with TikTok kind of killing rock right now, it's becoming a little less frequent. But what can you do? So, I had one student in particular who was getting into rock, specifically really heavy djenty rock. So he asked me one day what I thought of mayonnaise guitars. I'm like, mayonnaise? It took me a second to realize what he meant was mayonnaise. I think he was getting into, I think Periphery and Architects and Monuments, who played their instruments in their videos. He was like, is that a good guitar to start on? I'm like, yeah, those are good, but not exactly something you want to jump into right away. They're a bit expensive. So he was wondering what would be a good guitar to start on. And that got me to thinking, heavily about your first guitar and how much of an impact it has on you. And I'm not even talking about playing style, because that's something that comes way further down the road. I mean more so whether or not you even stick with the instrument. So, before I get into a humorous story here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes of this rant series or my tone matching series. I have 2 more in store before the end of the year, so I think one of them is a real treat too. Get ready for that one. I know quite a few of you might be thinking, if you practice a lot and you really want to learn, you'll push through it, but I don't think that can always be the case. Hear me out here. Now, I think I lucked out that my first guitar, or at least the guitar that I learned on, was arguably the best of the best. I had the privilege of learning on my grandfather's Gibson Les Paul. I know that's kind of unfair, right? But that's what was there, and it's what I learned on until I got my first guitar. For me, it was perfect to learn on because it stayed in tune, had 2 pneumatic bridge, stop bar tailpiece configuration. Back to that determination pushing through thing for a second. A friend of mine actually showed me my first few songs: Smashing Pumpkins' Disarm, Marilyn Manson's Sweet Dreams, Soundgarden's Pretty Noose, and Everclear's Santa Monica. Those are pretty varied, huh? Now, the first song, though, even though all chords, was probably the toughest for a few reasons, and not just because it was my first song. One being really that my friend really wanted that guitar, and he thought that if he discouraged me and I gave up, that I would sell it to him. So he put really thick 13 gauge strings on that guitar, making it a lot tougher to learn and push those strings down. What he wasn't planning on was me really wanting to learn Smashing Pumpkins songs. So yeah, I guess I did push through. I built up calluses really fast, and I played until my fingers bled. In hindsight, the guitar was still really comfortable though. And when thinking about it, I guess there were a few really big factors that had to come into play for that. On to why your first guitar, or guitar you learn on, is so important. Now, by now you have to have figured out that I'm a massive Smashing Pumpkins fan. So you would think that I would be a Strat guy, right? Well, just like my student finding out about mayonnaise guitars through bands that he liked, I also took notice that Billy Corgan played a Strat in Smashing Pumpkins. So obviously, I wanted a Strat. Now, before I even played guitar, I actually used to buy tons of music magazines like Rolling Stone, Spin, Circus, Hit Parader, and guitar magazines like Guitar World. I also got catalogs in the mail from Sam Ash Guitar Center and Musicians Friend. What caught my eye came in the form of a Sam Ash catalog that had Elvis standing in the clouds. It advertised a starter Strat pack with an amp, bag, and everything you needed to start out. I was like, cool, Billy plays one that looks just like that. So I saved up, and after quite some time, what I ended up buying instead was a really nice Fender Tweed amp, which I still have and friends fawned over because it sounds absolutely fantastic. Eventually, I bought my first real guitar. It was mine. Back to Sam Ash I went, and I got a Gibson Flying V because in my head, I still had Jim Martin from Faith No More, my first favorite band. ingrained in my head. So that was my main guitar for about 3 or 4 years until I realized kind of how silly it was playing that kind of guitar when I primarily played modern rock. So why did I buy a guitar so radically different from a Strat? Comfortability being a really big factor. Yeah, I know, Flying V, awkward shape, right? That's not the comfort part that I'm talking about, though. Remember how I mentioned earlier that Tune-Matic bridge and stop bar tailpiece on the Les Paul? Well, that Flying V had that too. That was the reason why I didn't buy a Strat, because when I finally sat down and played one, it was super uncomfortable. I was used to my hands sort of hovering or resting on that bridge, which is much different on a trem-style bridge of a Strat. Plus, the necks are night and day between a Gibson and a Fender. Gibsons have a glossy, finished neck that, though some people complain are gross and sticky, I find it to be really sleek and fast. I actually felt the opposite about Strats. Due to the angling of the headstock, it was tougher to push strings down too. The bridge didn't feel right. You string the strings through the back of the body of the guitar, and the body just didn't feel right when it was against me. It didn't matter if I was sitting down or standing up, it just didn't feel right at all. This is really good, by the way. So in late 2001, roughly 4 years from the time I bought my Flying V, I found myself at Sam Ash again. Now, I went there with the intent of buying a Les Paul Black Beauty. Instead, I left for the Paul Reed Smith standard model. Sensing a bit of a pattern here? What kind of bridge do you think was on that PRS? It definitely wasn't a string-through body trem style system, I'll tell you that. Though eventually I did get a Strat, one that was to emulate Billy Corgan's Silver Bat Strat, and it's the first known replication on the net at the time, mind you. I never really made friends with it. It does sound great, and yet again, another guitar that friends fawn over due to how comfortable it is. And it sounds just freaking great, but it's not my main. Or even one that I practice or write on very often, to be honest. In hindsight, I think that if I did get that Strat pack, I most likely would not still be playing guitar right now, or even a year or 6 months after I first started learning, to be honest. And I attribute this to the type of guitar that I learned on. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has to get a Les Paul, but what I am saying is that little things that we might not think about, like the bridge, neck shape, headstock tilt, body contours, all play a massive part in whether you have a short flirtation with the instrument for a few weeks or months, or you end up a lifelong learner. There are great starter guitars out there from Epiphone, which I highly recommend. Squier, Schecter, Jackson, Ibanez, and BC Rich, to name a few. I put the links down below if you want to check them out. I am in no way affiliated with any company, so they're royalty-free links that I basically just plucked off of Google, really. So, former student and anyone else who doesn't play or is thinking about picking up the guitar, I want you to keep some of these things in mind if you would like to learn some of your favorite band's music. Go hit up a Sam Ash or a Guitar Center, or even better, a local independent store. Ask someone who works there for help and patience. Yeah. And good luck on what could be a really fun journey. So, what are your thoughts? And if you have been playing for some time, what was your first guitar? Leave a comment below, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm Mr. P, and I'll be seeing you soon.